Hello, everyone, and welcome to our University Business Web Seminar here today, which is entitled Alternative Credentials and CBE Programs, Answering the Call for Skills-Based Learning, which is brought to you by the generous support of our sponsor here today, Genzabar. Now, before we get started, I would just like to share just a few housekeeping items with you very quickly. If at any point you need any technical support during the webinar, you can just use the chat panel, which you can find. It's on the lower right-hand side of your screen. Then select on my name, which is Stephen Blackburn, or host, and then just type in your message, and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. I'm also about to submit a phone number as well as an access code in the chat that you can dial in at any time if you want to listen in privately or if you don't have any speakers. So look out for that as well. Let's see, we'll also be hosting a Q&A session that will be happening at the end of the presentation. And you can find that. Please submit your questions by using the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, and then send your questions to all panelists. If you currently don't see the chat or the Q&A panels, just look again, bottom right-hand side of your screen, and then just click on the expand triangle. Also, the last point I'd like to make is that if you would like to access the web seminar at a later time, you'll be pleased to know that all of you here in attendance, all of you will receive an email from us at UB with a link to the slides, as well as an archive recording. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers that we have with us today. We have Cindy Carter, who is the Vice President of Business, Technology, Allied Health, and Workforce Development at Badenoch Community College, or Bay College, and Mark Gradolf, who is Product Manager at Genzabar. Welcome, Cindy and Mark. Great to have you with us today. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I'm glad to be here today and excited about talking about alternative credentials and CBE programs. Just a little bit about myself before we proceed with the actual content of the webinar. As mentioned, my name is Mark, and I've been a product manager with Genzabar for about 15 years. I have worked almost exclusively in the continuing education space since about 2007 with products and solutions that we at Genzabar have designed specifically to address some of the unique problems that we saw in the continuing ed space back in those early days. But I've been with Genzabar since 1992, so I've been around for a long time, and I've met a lot of good people over the years. My expertise is on the student side of the house, and I've implemented dozens, if not probably hundreds, of student systems across the country and actually around the world. I'm much more excited to talk about our guest, Cindy Carter, who is, as Stephen mentioned, Vice President of Business, Technology, Allied Health, and Workforce Development at Badenoch Community College. Cindy was originally hired in 2001 at Bay College as their Director of Admissions. And she served in this role as well as in the role of Executive Director of Admission Services until 2015. In 2015, her entrepreneurial spirit led her to satisfy a lifelong dream of owning her own business. So she left Badenoch and purchased a business. She returned in 2018 as the Dean of Business, Technology, and Workforce Development before transitioning into her current Vice President role at the college. Cindy serves on Bay College's President's Advisory Council, which provides strategic leadership of the college's mission, which is student success, community success, and cultural success. But most importantly, she's leading the team at Bay College to launch competency-based education in a program at the institution. Cindy earned her Associate of Arts degree from Bay College, a Bachelor of Business Administration from Western Michigan University, and a Master of Arts in Organizational Management degree from the University of Phoenix. So I welcome Cindy and I thank her for joining us this afternoon and serving as our panelist. Here's a little slide about Bay, and I'd ask Indy to maybe describe your school in your own words for us.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Mark. So we have come together today to talk about competency-based education, which Mark has shared is a initiative we are in the middle of here at Bay College. So happy to share my experience so far and what we're doing and what we have done to this point to launch this. But I guess before we get started, a little bit about where I'm at and in our college. We are located in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and I'm happy to report there's no snow on the ground, and it's October 4th, so that's good news. We are a small rural community college. We have 2 campuses. Our current student enrollment for this fall is just over 1,800 students. As we look at our demographics settling into the fall semester, I thought I would just share some of our status in terms of full-time students, which is currently at 32%, and then our part-time student body is 68% attending classes part-time. The other piece that we pay close attention to is the age. So right now, less than 18 years of age on our campus, it's just over 40% of our student enrollment. And then the next highest cohort is the 18 to 21 years of age. So again, looking a lot at the demographics of who we're serving and what that means to them in terms of course offerings and everything that they're trying to balance to work towards their educational goal. Working part-time, working full-time, trying to come to school, online modalities, flexible schedules, all of that, of course, plays into what we're trying to do to support our students as well as our workforce.
Thank you, Cindy. We move on to the next slide and really want to drill into why exactly we're here today. So I think that we're here because there's an increasing demand for academic programs and credentials that are flexible, that are accessible, and shorter than our typical full-term kind of class. That's become increasingly more evident with the growth of educational platforms that provide this kind of content today. And also how major companies like Google or IBM are actually creating credentials themselves and skills-based training. In 2021, we at Genzabar conducted our own survey of learners to take their pulse on education and employment. And it was clear from our survey that U.S. adults need to see a much clearer alignment between their educations, their educational training, and their career objectives. They're seeking much more affordable and more accessible ways to secure the well-paying jobs of today and the well-paying jobs that they expect in the future. With this demand from learners as well as from employers on the rise, higher education institutions can benefit by helping to increase enrollment through offering more flexible and accessible offerings that really will meet the needs of all learners. Our customers are talking about these kinds of topics, and at Genzabar, we've been working with CBE as well as continuing education and workforce development for several years, providing solutions that help our institutions grow and manage their programs more efficiently. Today, we're going to talk about a truly innovative program at Bay College, and we're happy that Cindy's here to join in and tell us about her experiences. But before we get started, we have a couple of polling questions that we want to gather information from you. So the first question is, what do you think CBE is? And our possible responses are competency-based education, a way for learners to focus on the mastery of skills as opposed to completion or seat time, a way for institutions to improve industry and academic alignment, a way to provide employers with a better trained workforce, or all of the above? The poll is ended. And it's probably not all that surprising, but 88% of you picked probably the most appropriate answer, all of the above, because this is truly, each one of these responses is what can be used to define CBE. So they're all appropriate. So nobody's a loser here. But that is information about CBE. Our next polling question is something that Cindy wanted to learn about from y'all.
I can go ahead and lead this one. Sure. I was curious for those that are on the call, where you are in terms of implementing CBE. If you're just curious, and that's why you're here today, that's great. If you've already started the process, but you'd like some advice. And then for those of you who have an established program, learning about what others are doing. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing kind of where you're at in this journey. Great. No wrong answer. Just kind of getting a feel for where everyone's at on, again, on the CBE journey that we're on. So, okay, a lot of curiosity out there, Mark. We have our work cut out for us this afternoon.
Our work cut out for us this afternoon. So all right, let's turn our attention to Bay College and your experience with the short form credential and certificate programs. How has this demand impacted your organization, your school? How has it impacted your offering portfolio and the strategy that you have moving forward?
So I'll share that competency-based education has been a term that has been tossed around our institution for quite a while, even before I came into the current VP role. Our current president has been talking about competency-based education and how we could implement this at the college for several years. But we really have gotten behind it more or less in the last, I would say, 20 months, 24 months, where we are seeing the need for this. And within my role with the workforce piece, hearing from industry, they need skilled workers. They need them to complete quicker, more sooner. They have folks within their industries that maybe need to skill up or scale up or advance. So they were really reaching out to us on how we could meet this need. Of course, within higher ed, we operate within semesters and 16-week schedules or 14-week schedules. And all of a sudden, it was becoming apparent that there were folks in the workforce that maybe had some of the skills, so maybe didn't necessarily need to sit through a whole 16-week course, but more get through module-based to achieve an end goal. So again, knowing that our senior leadership team has been talking about competency-based, all of a sudden this need from the workforce saying, hey, what can you do to help us, has really given us a chance to pause and decide where we needed to go. So what has it done to Bay College? I'm going to say it's disrupting everything. It's truly disrupting the way we have done and known and delivered our courses. So I say that and that we are doing it strategically and we are being very thoughtful, but it's a different way of looking at the delivery of courses and learning outcomes in a way that we have not done it. So we know that it has to happen. Industry's asking for it, and we have a program and faculty right now that are willing to kind of drive this ship with us. So it changes things, right? We have these models and we have the Department of Ed and our accrediting bodies that have systems in place that we've known them forever. And now we're looking at shifting that a bit. So it's not taken lightly. There's a lot of thought that has to go in to changes and strategy. And so that's where we're at with taking the first steps to move forward with one of our programs.
So, I've heard a lot, in fact, I'm sure everybody has heard a lot about how the pandemic or the Great Resignation has impacted our workforce. But surely there are other forces such as technological advances, the pace of innovation, demographic shifts, socioeconomic changes. These are all things that are impacting what skills are needed by today's workforce. I actually read recently about how some companies were starting to maybe modify the focus of what they're looking for when they're hiring from a traditional requirement perspective to more of a focus on skills based hiring. So at Bay College, my question to you is, I understand that you're working on a competency-based education approach in your water technology program. It sounds to me, from what I've heard, is that this initiative was driven by your president as well as the needs of employers throughout your community. Can you talk a little bit about why and how the college is using CBE for the water technology program?
Sure. So Bay College has a water technology program, as Mark has mentioned. It's a one-year certificate or a two-year associate's degree. So it focuses on training water operators, which when you think about this in terms of having people in all of our communities in our country trained to provide safe water and keep our water safe, it's causes you to pause when you think that there may not be enough trained people to do this for us down the road. And like every other industry, they have an aging workforce and people are stepping out. So we were contacted by one of our larger cities and asked if we could deliver training, coursework, curriculum, content to help current operators advance to their next state exam to obtain the necessary skill to progress within their water treatment plant. So when that was asked of us, we looked at, okay, how do we deliver this? And it aligned perfectly with what we're learning around CBE and competency based. There's a group of individuals that have skills that do not necessarily need to complete a 16-week class on one subject because they've been working in the field, so they know some of the earlier concepts and content around the water treatment systems, but they're more advanced. They need to keep advancing. So it really gave us a chance to look at if we could deliver our water program in a different format than what we've been used to. So that really was the driving force. And then of course having a faculty member that was willing to invest the time and energy to learn more about this, because it's really a shift. We've had, the standard format, 16 weeks, and we have operate on a semester schedule with a syllabi that guides learning outcomes and making sure everything is lined up. So it's a heavy lift for an instructor to step back and look at program learning outcomes, how we're assessing, recognizing where someone's at in the course and in those learning outcomes, and helping them kind of move through at a pace that's right for them. So, with this particular program that we've identified as our starting point, it really was industry driven.
That's interesting. So you mentioned so much that has to shift that you've experienced. What are some of the lessons that you've learned? Some of the best practices that have been instrumental in helping you make this journey or take this journey?
And it is. It's not. It's not one person, right? It's not just a faculty member. It's not just the president. It's all of us, and that is one thing I think we have done really well. We have brought together our teams. We've been talking about this for some time. And very early on, when we decided we were going to start this process, you do have to go through, of course, with the Higher Learning Commission. That's our accrediting body. going through that application where you have to submit a CBE application to receive approval from the HLC to deliver in this format, and making sure you have their approval to do this first and foremost. So we brought together not only just academics, but also across campus, financial aid, student services, our IT folks. So everyone was around the room to have these discussions and start building a timeline of what needed to happen. It doesn't happen overnight. Leading this, I had to reach out to a lot of different resources and start asking questions. You know, what is CBE? What is it not? Is there a cookie cutter model to do this? You know, asking a lot of questions. And literally this movement is happening across our country with CBE right now, and we're all learning together. And I keep telling folks on campus, there's still far more questions than there are answers, but we continue to learn. There's not one size fits all when it comes to CBE. So asking a lot of questions. And, you know, of course, the big thing for us right now is we spent the summer preparing our HLC, the application that we had to submit. So that application was turned in back in July. So we are waiting to hear from the Higher Learning Commission that we're approved, because we are going to get approved to move forward with a full program launch for fall of 2023. So we built this timeline, continuing to do bi-weekly meetings with the team of people as we get ready to roll this out. It's been across campus. It's not just one person, one division, because we realize this could be a game changer for the way we deliver future classes. So the timeline that we have, it's been shared. We've embedded this into our opening days, our in-service when we came back to campus in August. So it's all hands on deck right now in terms of folks thinking about how this could impact their area, from the way we market to the way a student registers for classes and what that transcript will look like at the end. So connecting with people, asking a lot of questions. We were fortunate enough, we joined what's called the Competency Based Education Network, CBEN. And if folks are not familiar with that and want to learn more, highly recommend CBEN. It's been a wealth of knowledge. They have webinars, they have huddles. They're actually hosting a conference in a couple weeks that we are bringing a team of folks to learn more and ask questions. So I can't stress enough the communication piece, and still asking questions of our employers. We have advisory boards. Would this work for your area? What do we need to be setting in place? What do we need to be asking of folks to make sure this is the right fit too? Not everybody is maybe an ideal candidate for a CBE program. So we'll have to go through some of those growing pains too to identify the population that this may be a good fit for. So a lot of communication, which is always key to any new initiative, but I think we've done a really good job doing that, bringing people along. Well, our president would like to see this go across campus at this point, and it was recommended as you're getting ready to launch these programs, really just starting with one, starting small, keeping things simple. We have followed those recommendations, and so I think we have done that well so far with starting with our water technology certificate. It's a 1-year certificate, and we had a faculty member that was willing to dive in and do the work. So keeping it simple, starting small, keeping people informed, but still going forward.
So I'm curious, and I'm going to throw a question at you that we hadn't talked about earlier in preparing for this. So be prepared, right?
Okay, I'm ready.
I'm wondering, now that you're nearing, completion of your vision, you're ready to go with this program. What is it that you've learned that you had no idea that you would learn when you started out?
There's still a lot of unknowns, I think. And so for me, it was I don't have to have all the answers. You know, you want to go in and you want to be sure of things, and there's just not a lot of this is how it has to be done. It's one size fits all. Here's the model and implement it. And it's okay not to know. It's okay to be asking questions and making it work for what we need to. So I guess that was the biggest surprise. I guess as we dove into it, I thought, okay, someone's just going to tell me, Cindy, this is what you need to do. Here's the model, and it doesn't quite exist yet. People are dipping their foot in the water and trying it and adjusting as we go, and that's okay. I will say, as these conversations were happening around campus, being a Jenzabar school, of course, we had already invested in the CBE module, which again, that had been in place. We were a beta site for the CBE module, and as we were kind of talking with others, and they said, "What do you have?" And I'm like, "We already have this CBE module," and they're like, "Oh my goodness!" Like that's a big piece, is the technology in place to also support this. So again, having our IT folks at the table on how that is going to help us on the other side of the house in terms of students and transcripts and tracking things. We're just getting more involved with that module piece, which is really exciting. So that's been a critical component to us kicking this off too. So
as you continue to execute your strategic plan and vision to create CBE types of credentials and certificates, looking to the future, where do you expect all this to go?
So as I mentioned, I think, well, I know our president wants all things CBE. And I think, it has that potential. Certainly, when you look at the programs that exist, and whether it be a welding certificate, my goodness, when you look at healthcare, right, and thinking of competencies, we're pretty close, right? Students are learning different things within our nursing and our allied health programs. And so they're meeting competencies and then they advance through. So we may already be doing it within allied health and we're just not aware. But I know folks are curious. Folks are kind of watching, at least here at Bay, to see how we roll this out and how it's going to move. I will tell you that the conference that we're attending in just a few weeks does have, we do have someone from our general education team, our psychology instructor, is joining us at this conference. So he is curious as well on what CBE could mean for even a psychology course or a psychology student, right? So you can start to see how this is really, it started as skills-based, right? Water testing, maybe allied health, welders. If you can do an arc weld, okay, do you need to spend this much time in a class? And just showing us that you've met these competencies to get you moving quicker through. But now we're talking about psychology, possibly. Like that's interesting, right? On what this can mean for all of us. So one thing at a time, Mark. We're starting small with that one program, but I do think it could change the face of education and higher ed as we know it. So I'm looking forward to where this goes. And really, at the end of the day, it's about students being successful and helping our community and our workforce partners. And if workforce, and we know this, we need to get people into the workforce, maybe quicker than ever, with the skills that they need to not only enter, but then also to advance. And so if we are at a point in time where we need to look at how we deliver education and training, there's no better time than right now to do this.
Cindy, you mentioned the conference, and if I'm not mistaken, that conference is up the road from me here in Florida in Amelia Island. So I think the weather is past and you should be fine here when you come down. But maybe could you talk more about that conference and what you anticipate learning from that experience?
Sure. Well, our connection to the conference came from joining CBEN. And so it's called the CBEN Exchange, and it is their annual conference where they bring together folks that want to talk and learn and share around CBE. So I'm putting a lot of hope in this conference, and we have a team of 6 of us traveling down to Florida in a couple weeks. The sessions, from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing, it's filled with everything from just a lot of the folks that are on this call. They're curious, right? You're curious and you want to know more, to sharing on what has worked, what hasn't worked, and it's folks from around the country. So I'm very excited. There are several sessions that I'm looking at that talk about the time to completion, removing the financial barriers for a student to earn a college certificate or a credential or a degree. I mean, that time to completion matters, right, from a financial standpoint. We spend a lot of time at Bay talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. You know, how does that play into this? How can we make sure we're serving everybody and helping them get into the workforce with the skills that they need to give back and contribute? So we're excited. I'm thankful that Florida is okay. And we will be down there in just a few weeks with a team of people. And again, I'm bringing myself, 3 of our faculty, including someone from our psychology division, our computer programming instructor, of course, our water instructor, and then another dean is joining me. I wish I could have brought the whole team, because when I looked at the sessions, there's so many sessions that I think all of us will benefit from. So we're going to divide and conquer and bring back as much information as we can.
Well, that sounds wonderful. And I know that we at Genzabar will be interested in following up on your experiences. I want to shift gears next and move into our next poll question. Oh, well, before I do, Cindy, are there any other comments that you would like to make to wrap up?
You know, I think it's a learning curve, right? And it's thinking about doing things differently. Again, you know, we've higher ed, right? It's what I have been a part of forever. I guess, you know, I'm going on 20 years, but before that, working at other institutions, and making sure that we're aligned, right? And really helping our industries, not just water, allied health, cybersecurity, automotive, right? Criminal, all of our industries, making sure that we are hitting the mark and making sure students have the skills they need and the time that they need them to either enter or advance in the workplace. So I think it's a really exciting time. It's a heavy lift, right? And there's a lot of skeptics out there wondering what we're doing and how this is going to work. But it's something that it's everywhere. When you start to do the research and start and tap into some of the resources that are available, it really is a shift in thinking. And again, no better time than right now. Coming out of the pandemic, we know that the workforce is retiring at a faster rate than ever before, and people stepping out, the great resignation, right? We need to get people trained and into these jobs. And so, you know, the fact that a water industry reached out to us and said, can you help? And we are doing it is pretty cool. And it's fun to be a part of, and being a part of this change and this movement that I think it's not going to go away. It's here, and it's just navigating it together and learning together and sharing as we move forward.
That's great. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I want to talk a little bit about what Genzabar is doing to help our clients like Bay College. But before I go there, I have another poll question. And this question is, does your institution offer credit and or non-credit courses to unenrolled learners through certificates or stackable credentials or other kinds of offerings? So the question has really only 3 possible responses: yes, no, or you're not really sure. So we'll take some time and see what our poll has to say this time.
currently having some technical issues, so please put them in your in the chat. Thank you.
That's thank you, Stephen. All right, so with the technical issues, I'll just move on, and I wanted to spend just a brief amount of time talking about some pretty exciting things that I think Genzabar is doing to help schools like Bay support CBE programs or really any workforce development or continuing education type of offering. And we have embarked on a new platform that we call the Campus Marketplace. This is a platform. It really is designed to help institutions extend their reach and support modern learners. Campus Marketplace enables colleges and universities to unbundle their course offerings from degree programs and then make them accessible to learners who may not be enrolled at the school. So with Campus Marketplace, you can be very, very flexible with your curriculum in order to address local and industry needs, as well as require the education necessary to upskill and reskill the employees for the various employers you have in your community. So Campus Marketplace is really it's really an amazing technology. It allows us to do this unbundling of course offerings and make them accessible to all learners. But we're doing it in a very familiar kind of buying experience for the consumer. And so it's a platform where you can publish your offerings, unbundled offerings, and anybody can walk up and make a purchase or enroll in those particular offerings. And so there are technologies out there, and there have been for several years, that do that kind of thing. But above and beyond that, what we're doing is we're allowing schools to set up stores that might be specific to a particular department on campus. So I can have a very custom store environment for one department versus another. Or in fact, you can actually set up stores that you might set up for business and industry. So if you have relationships with companies or other organizations throughout your community, and you'd like that experience for them to be a little bit different than maybe some other organization, the marketplace will give you that type of flexibility, that type of control over how you're presenting your educational opportunities to these entities. And then above and beyond that, a lot of schools, and this isn't, we haven't really talked about this afternoon, but I work with a lot of institutions that are in some type of consortium arrangement, and the marketplace will allow schools to combine their offerings into one store if that's something that would satisfy or suit their needs. But of course, all of this is really amazing because all of the transactions that are occur with your own student information system. So for Genzabar, it's the J1 product. In the future, we anticipate this will be available to all ERP solutions through the technology that we are developing for this particular product. So in addition to the marketplace, Genzabar, of course, has a leading SIS system. In fact, in 2021, it was selected first overall throughout the year, and historically has been one of the most selected SIS systems in the market. But what's important to remember about Genzabar Student is that it was designed with the flexibility that it will support competency-based education programs that match your objectives. And it supports things like open enrollment and early exits, which is so important because students need to be able to sign up for courses and take these courses at their own pace and progress through programs as they are able to progress through these programs. So with that, I want to thank you for attending this portion of the webinar. And of course, we've got some resources that you'll have access to moving forward. And I think that the plan now is to open a general question and answer session. Is that correct, Steve?
Yes, that's right. So, like I said earlier, I'm having some technical issues. I'm sorry about that. But for right now, you can now send in your questions to Cindy and Mark so they can answer them on the air. If you haven't already, you can send in your questions in writing, and you can do that by accessing the Q&A panel that we have right there. It's on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. It's the option next to the chat button, if you can't see it. And there should be three dots or an ellipses next to the chat button. Click on that, and that should bring you to the Q&A panel. So first off, I'm still connected, which is good. So I'll ask these first few questions. Hopefully I'll stay on. I apologize. But this question that came in, how do you accomplish the CBE adaptation in the curriculum? Like, how did it change, how the students experience the program?
We are in the midst of that right now, right? So the program, our first program will launch in the fall, but what is happening in preparation for that, our water instructor is, and I should mention this too, we did reach out to a consultant that has been guiding us through this process. In addition to the CBEN network, it was suggested that we partner with folks that have had some experience doing this. So our consultant has been working with our water instructor to build the course learning outcomes. So at what point in the course does someone or a concept get introduced? It's practiced and then assessed, right? So we have some rubrics that we're using, doing a lot of mapping on when certain tasks, certain theories and concepts will be introduced, practiced, and assessed. So it is changing that. It has, again, we're in it right now, building that in terms of syllabi and building these maps for these classes at the moment. So I hope that helps answer the question. It has not officially launched yet, but that work is happening right now.
Perfect. No, I think you answered that beautifully. Thank you. So this next question is just based on time. Like how long did it take, from conception to where you are now to make the water treatment a reality?
We started the heavy lift where we really got serious about doing this last January, where it became a strategic agenda item for the college. So it is part of our overall strategic agenda that guides Bay College. It is on there front and center. So certainly everyone is aware, but the heavy lift kicked off in January. We spent most of the summer writing the CBE application that was submitted to the HLC. So, I mean, we're going on, it'll be a year in January from when we've, started the work. And then the goal again is to launch this in August of 2023.
Perfect. Thank you. So it looks like this next question is for you, Mark. Based on your market research, how are institutions using IT solutions to grow enrollments and address evolving expectations from learners and employers?
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of that research is really behind what we're doing with Campus Marketplace. What we learned is that there are a lot of programs out, there, a lot of classes, offerings. People can't get to. There's no access. There are so many barriers to somebody trying to get into a class. It's a simple thing. But for many institutions, it's not so simple to take someone that just simply wants to walk up and purchase some unit or some type of education. So the marketplace is a technology that we are doing to resolve that problem. And that's where a tremendous amount of our focus has been.
Perfect. Thank you. Next question for Cindy, obviously. Are you considering online education with CBE or face-to-face or blended?
Both. I think it'll be a combination of both. One of the interesting, and I'm just sharing, I guess, just sharing. One of the interesting perspectives on this when we were kind of diving in and learning more about what CBE is and what it can be. Someone had shared from another institution. They said, think about it this way. Think about CBE as a modality. So 30 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, you would not have thought about courses being delivered online. So the thought that somebody was saying, oh, you're going to deliver chemistry online or water technology online. We're not doing online. Is it here to stay? Online's going away, right? So you have to wonder where CBE will be. So of course, we have our traditional face-to-face classes. We have online classes. We have hybrid classes. We have flex classes, and we have CBE classes. That was just an interesting piece that I still hang on to in terms of what it will look like and what it can look like. But for right now with Bay, it will be a blend, maybe some online, maybe some face-to-face, or maybe a blend. But the modality piece I thought was an interesting take on it when people are like, oh, we're not going to do CBE. We're not going to do online classes either, right? And look where we are. So just an interesting thought.
Yeah, perfect. Let's see here. Someone was wondering if you're going to be taking this, say CBE to the next level by kind of giving it like a personalized learning type of spin. Is that something that you're considering?
Sure, I think so. I think everything's on the table. We're learning as we go. That's a really good question.
Awesome. Perfect. Let's see, another question, and there's a whole bunch of them coming in, so this is really great. We still have some time. For Cindy, do you consider your current offering as, quote unquote, unbundled, or is unbundling part of, your future plans?
So I guess terminology, when you say unbundled, I guess I'm curious, I just want to make sure I'm understanding what's being asked. Is it,
Good question. Hopefully that person will get back to us on that. Let's see. Any other questions? Right now, my screen is frozen again. So Mark, I don't know if you were able to see the Q&A at all, because there's a few more questions that are coming in. And if you can't currently, that's completely fine.
I'm
There's a whole bunch of them. Yeah.
there was,
perusing.
I'll just comment, a few people are asking about when I
Sure.
refer to CBEN. So I guess just point of clarification, that's the competency-based education network. So it's CBEN is just the acronym for that network that folks may find valuable as a resource.
Perfect. And while you're currently going through the questions right now, I saw someone just submitted one as well. Just know that we are coming close to the top of the hour, but please continue sending your questions, and we at UB will be sending all of the questions that weren't answered today, and we will share them with Jenzabar and Cindy so they can respond to your questions after the event. So just wanted to let you guys know that as well. So completely.
Someone asked
Oh,
what version of Jenzabar Bay College is on. We're on Jenzabar 1.
perfect. So there is a question, has CBE been like, so has CBE led to a boost in enrollment at Bay College?
Not yet. No, we haven't seen that yet because we're going through the process of getting ready to launch.
Perfect. All right. So again, we're getting close to that time. But just so you know, like I said earlier, please continue to submit your questions so we can answer them following the event. But again, thank you very much, Cindy and Mark, for your time here today. This has been a really rewarding experience, especially for all of our audience members as well. And thank you to Jenzabar. And to you, our audience, I would also like to thank you for joining us here today. For those of you who enjoyed our presentation, there are many more upcoming web seminars like this one that are provided by University Business, which is the leader in editorial coverage of news, trends, as well as current issues in higher education. We have a wide range of readers who subscribe for free to UB, and they stay up to date with us online, in our newsletters, and web seminars like this one. Also, if you would like to watch this web seminar again, or for those of you who believe that the solutions that were provided would be helpful to your colleagues, as I'm sure that is the case, you'd be pleased to know that our team here at UB, we will be sending an email later tomorrow with an on-demand recording of this web seminar and the link to the slides as well. So with that, on behalf of UB, this is Stephen Blackburn. Thanks, everyone. Take care, be well, and stay safe. We really appreciate it.